Well, it's September now. You know what that means? That's right! Crash Bandicoot is officially 20 years old! As it's become blatantly obvious on this channel, Crash Bandicoot is one of my all-time favorite video game franchises and one I've held near and dear to my heart ever since I was a kid. And because this year marks the 20th anniversary of this beloved platformer series, I think it was safe to assume I was going to celebrate this in some way, shape, or form. However, while I did consider doing a countdown related to the franchise, I've decided to do something a little bit different. I've been considering giving video game reviews a try for a while now, and to celebrate such a big day for me, why not start now? So for the series' 20th anniversary, and also to celebrate the return of Crash in the form of the remaster trilogy on PS4, I'm actually going to look back on the game that started it all and see how well it holds up today. Yeah, I know, not the most original thing in the world to do, but couldn't really think of any other fitting way to celebrate the series' 20th anniversary. So without further ado, let's get started on this little Crash Bandicoot retrospective. Released on the PlayStation on September 9th, 1996, the original Crash Bandicoot was created to serve as Sony's platform mascot, as to compete with Nintendo's Mario and Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog. And I really mean it when I say compete.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived.
Pack up your stuff. I got a little surprise for you here.
Check it out. What do you think about that? We got real-time, 3D, lush organic environments. How's that make you feel, buddy?
Feel a little like your days are numbered?
Seriously, the console war was brutal back in the 90s. The game was made by then still novice game developers Naughty Dog, who wanted to make a platformer that would move the genre into 3D, which a lot of gaming genres were in the midst of doing at the time. Granted that it had already been covered by Super Mario 64, which not only came out earlier, but also was open world as opposed to Crash's hallway-like level design, but regardless, Crash Bandicoot certainly helped make 3D platformers a more common sight in the gaming industry. But enough about history and impact for now, let's actually get to talking about the game, starting with the story. The game's story focuses on, well, Crash Bandicoot, an anthropomorphic Bandicoot mutated by the evil Dr. Neo Cortex, who's been plotting on using mutant animal soldiers to take over the world with assistance from his colleague Dr. Nitrous Brio. However, Crash was deemed a failure and Cortex had him thrown out. And while this would be seen as a blessing to most people, Crash happened to fall in love with another mutated Bandicoot named Tawna. So now he's got to make his way back to Cortex's castle so he can save Tawna. Oh, and save the world, but that's just a minor detail. It's a simple plot line, but hey, it gets the job done. And besides, it's not a major focus. That's where the gameplay comes in. Though much like the story, the gameplay's pretty simple as well. Get to the end of the level alive, beat bosses, collect 100 of the game's pickups, in this case the fictionalized Wumpa Fruit, to get an extra life, your standard platform fare. And the abilities you're given are simple as well. Aside from movement, which you're able to do in all 8 directions, Crash's only abilities are to jump and do a spin attack to destroy crates and enemies. But like everything else, they get the job done quite well. The one thing that's done a little differently is the health system. Initially, you only have 1 hit, but by collecting the Witch Doctor mask named Aku Aku, you're given an extra hit. Get another one, and you're given a 3rd hit, and get yet another one, and you'll be invincible for a short period of time. And that's really all the gameplay has going for it, or at least in regards to mechanics. It doesn't do anything revolutionary for the genre, in fact quite a few of the levels are done in side-scrolling fashion, but it doesn't really need to. It still provides a fresh enough experience without reinventing the wheel, or whatever other analogy you want to use to help describe the situation. Alongside the 3D and 2D styles of platforming, there's also some levels where you get to ride a warthog. They're pretty great. Now, if there's one thing that really surprised me about this game upon recently replaying it, it's how well the game's presentation has aged. Considering how many games the PS1 era have not aged well visually, it's honestly kind of impressive how one of the earliest styles on the system still looks quite nice, with well-crafted character models and lush and lively environments that range from the more light natural worlds like the jungle and the stream, before gradually becoming the darker man-made areas like the power plant and, of course, Cortex's castle. Building off that, this game's got a strong variety of settings for the various levels, with some personal favorites being the factory levels, Slippery Climb, yes I do like Slippery Climb, sue me, and especially the bridge levels. The music's also really well composed, and while the soundtrack's not necessarily going to get stuck in your head anytime soon, except the main theme and maybe the Warthog level theme, each song does a splendid job at forming the atmosphere it wants to have. So yeah, it's rather surprising how well the first Crash game is held up visually, but sadly there are some elements of this game that aren't as strong as the rest. First and foremost, while the bosses themselves are memorable in design and settings, many of the actual battles are severely underwhelming. With the only 2 really noteworthy boss fights being Pinstripe, which really that's more in concept, the actual execution could have been better, and the final battle against Cortex, which is probably the funnest fight in the game. And secondly, holy crap, this game is hard! Seriously, as a kid, I never actually ended up finishing this game, because some of the later platforming challenges in this game get ridiculous. And admittedly, this isn't helped by the fact that Crash is rather heavy and doesn't have the greatest sense of momentum, which makes certain platforming challenges harder than they should be. However, now that I'm older, I actually see this challenge as something I'm more willing to welcome. I mean, it's still really difficult, but never to a cheap state. It's more the kind of game you get better at from trial and error. But one thing that admittedly makes the game harder than it should be, and I will not defend this in any way, shape, or form, is the game's horrible save feature. See, there are two ways to save in this game. You can either find the 3 Tawna tokens hidden in a single level and enter a bonus level, which you must complete without dying in order to save, or you can destroy every single crate in a level and then make it to the end without dying once, which gives you a gem and the ability to save. Only problem is, once you complete a bonus round or get a gem, you can't redo it to save again, meaning the game gives you limited amounts of time to save. And for the record, getting those gems isn't worth it whatsoever. First off, it's a hassle to get every single crate without dying, but even then, all that getting every single gem in the game allows you to do is skip the final battle and get the game's quote-unquote true ending, which, if you ask me, is actually weaker than the normal ending. And even then, you'll be missing out on the best boss in the game, so if you ask me, it's not even worth it. So really, the only reason you'll be going after the gems is just so you can save your progress, which I'm glad is a system that didn't carry over into the following games. So all in all, I'd say that despite these flaws, Crash Bandicoot's still a solid platformer that's surprisingly aged rather well. Might be impressive for the first game in such a big franchise. And I certainly have fond memories of playing this game back when I was 4 years old. Yes, the save system can be a large hindrance in your enjoyment of the game. Once you get over that hurdle, the game's a pretty fun experience to go through. Though would I recommend it to people interested in the series? Not really. Not saying it's bad, but with its somewhat awkward physics and, again, the horribly made save system, I'd probably end up recommending the later games of the series first and foremost. But that being said, for the time it came out, it had plenty going for it. And like I said, it still holds up relatively well today. And hey, critics seem to enjoy it, because within the following month, production began on Crash Bandicoot's sequel, which was then released in the following year. And from there, it was clear that Crash wasn't going to be a one-hit wonder, leading to a collection of titles ranging from some of the most well-rounded games to exist to some equally low points. And yeah, it may have failed in competing with Mario as a console mascot, but even then, it still managed to form a legacy that's lasted for 20 years now. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Like I said at the start, I've been wanting to give video game reviews a try for a while now, so consider this a prototype experiment thingy. And hey, I'd say it was a fitting way to celebrate Crash's 20th anniversary. Either way, if you'd like to see more reviews from me, please let me know in the comments. And if you want, feel free to suggest games you'd like to see me cover in the future. Speaking of which, if you're interested in seeing me do more Crash Bandicoot retrospective videos, particularly on the following 2 Crash games, once again, feel free to let me know in the comments. And don't worry, I'm not scrapping countdowns for the sake of reviews. I'm just figuring out an alternative for if I don't have any countdown ideas at the time. And now I'm rambling. Lovely. Anyways, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next project. Bye!